It's a somber edition of W2F, at least for some of us, a few of us, me being one of them. Post Super Bowl 59, the Philadelphia Eagles 40, Kansas City Chiefs 22, and it wasn't as close as that score even sounds, as those who watched know. A record-breaking audience, they say, the NFL had, and boy, was it. It just didn't deliver, Bass Daddy. And of course, Bryan here to start us out on the show. Bass is with me. Matt will try to cut in a little bit later. Um, and as a Chiefs fan, our listeners know that, we're going to talk about them a fair share. I do think it's appropriate to give Philadelphia first dibs, first credit, Bass. Even though I really dislike that team, I don't like their coach. I don't really like a lot of guys on that team. I can't take away from the fact that they played a hell of a game. And so, that being said, any first thoughts jump out to you about Philadelphia?
First thoughts thinking I'm not happy for their fans. That fan base is just really fucked up. Uh, I'm happy for Saquon. Jalen Hurts played a hell of a game in the first Super Bowl matchup between the two. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he came out there and made the throws, extended the plays. So hats off to him. The rest of Philadelphia, fuck them.
That is just it. And what did they do? They supposedly tore up the city, looted the city. I know that was probably hyperbolic. It maybe wasn't as extreme as sometimes they make it out to be, but total nonsense. But the thing that makes me the most sick about this deal, I look at that team and they're kind of built to get right back there next year. There's not a lot of big names on the way out. The only thing that really could and maybe will stop them from getting back is complacency. But I can't think of a single player who's not returning. Their GM continues to make great moves every offseason. They're not all home runs, but for the most part. And their owner spends money in the way that you'd want your owner to spend money. He doesn't pinch pennies whatsoever. But Bass Daddy, really, I've already seen some NFL fans saying, well, why doesn't my team, my team needs to do what Philly's doing, pay everybody, sign free agents. I want to push back on that a little bit because I would argue, I think they won this game through the draft. You look at the best players they have, Saquon was standing. These are draft picks, new and old. Jalen Carter from last year. This year it was the D-bags, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Um, they just take players who it's kind of like obvious, it feels, that they're going to be good, and they add them into the mix with their veterans who have been in Super Bowls before. And to your point, Hurts, the Chiefs challenged him. They stopped Saquon Barkley. They kept him under 60 yards, and it wasn't that Hurts was perfect, and quite honestly, he didn't have to be. I think he could have scored 20 points and won this game the way it started out, but he made some big time throws downfield, put the ball in spots that for the most part the Chiefs couldn't do anything about. And so, um, getting back on point though, I just feel like they're drafting better. And if you want your team to be like the Eagles, then your team has to draft better. They have to have 2, 3 picks who come out day one and are standout players.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the Chiefs, I'm not, getting worthy like they did. Look at him. I think that the Chiefs' problem obviously lies within the offensive line. Seem like all game you get your five linemen and even sometimes a running back
Mm.
to help pass protect. and their 4 pass rushers were getting past your 6 blockers. And having somebody like Mahomes in the backfield, you can draft or have a 5th round running back that'll rush for however many yards. He'll keep Mahomes upright, give him time to throw. I, I think that's what the Chiefs really need to invest in. And if he's got that, it don't matter if your defense is going to give up 25 to 30 points a game. You give Mahomes enough time to stand back in the pocket, he's going to make these receivers great. I don't think they need Tyreek Hill. I think Worthy is just as fast. Maybe even a little better hands. I don't know. You've watched Hill a lot more than I have, but he's a young guy. He's a lot less expensive. Um, Kelsey, I think maybe, I don't know if Noah Gray's the next answer that you guys need, or if maybe you could go into Iowa or Penn State and try to draft the successor, or so. I don't know. That's having, yeah, you can get Mahomes a tight end that has good hands and they can block. They can help chip. I think that's important too. But just like Brady, they didn't draft any big name wideouts in the 1st round any big that I can think of. I mean, you got Edelman and Welker, but if you got a quarterback that good and you got him a good offensive line, there's going to be success. And in this game, Mahomes did not have time to throw at all. I would like to have seen him get out of the pocket more, scramble to the right, give his receivers time. I think I texted you that. The next drive he did that and threw the first shot to Worthy. I think that's who it was. I'd have liked to see more of that. I was really confused. I know I'm kind of all over the place. I was confused defensively with Spagnuolo. I was just shocked. I would have liked to have seen them do something similar to what the Eagles did, defensively, in terms of jamming the receivers up. And I don't know. It just seemed like Jalen Hurts, he was under duress, but it seemed like he could step up anytime he wanted. And obviously, if your defense is in man coverage, there's nobody to account for the quarterback.
Yeah, he broke off some big runs that were really frustrating, and a couple early on when it was still competitive. But the frustrating part of the watch is you sit there and think it was so similar to the Tampa Super Bowl. Mahomes did not play as good, in my opinion. I feel like that night against Tampa, he kind of did all he could. In this game, between the pick six early and just missing some throws, like the first 3rd down, he put a ball that Kelsey in his prime would have caught, but it was a tough catch. It kept the chains from moving. And so the offensive, to your point, the offensive line, it came back to bite them. They've been playing musical chairs with the left tackle all year. Thought it was figured out. I don't know if it was figured out so much as they figured out how to play within those confines. They figured out we just have to throw the ball really quick and get it out of his hands, and then that kind of slows the defense down, maybe frustrates them a little bit because they don't feel like they have any chance to get to him. And then Sunday night, it just seemed like they went back to, let's try to force things downfield, and they couldn't block them. Kelsey, let's have that conversation. Apparently, he's got about a month to make a decision on his future. I feel like I want him back, and it's primarily because the leadership component. I think he does a good job of keeping guys focused, not just in the games, but really throughout the week, with his experience and his qualities. But on the field, it's clearly a situation where he's not the same guy. He doesn't get open at the same rate. He doesn't really break tackles for the most part at all. And if he is going to come back, and I think he'll be the first one to say, please take something off my plate. But if he is going to come back, it needs to be as the third or even fourth option in the offense. They need to evolve a little bit. They need to basically feature Worthy, Rashee Rice whenever he comes back off of whatever his suspension ends up being. Maybe they bring back Brown. I'm not sure. That they're going to need to bring somebody in to play the number 3. And yeah, I hope Travis comes back and just kind of almost more of a leader than a guy who they depend on to go out there and have 10 catches, 100 yards. Like, those days are very much done. And it's, it's too bad, but it was always going to happen eventually. It's too bad it showed up this way in the biggest game of arguably their career. So we'll see. Now, I don't know how you feel about this. I might have even mentioned it to you, but I know I mentioned it to some other people. If the Chiefs had to lose this game, and I know on last week's show I said that I didn't really think a blowout was in the cards. Clearly, I was wrong. I was right about the fact that the way the Eagles would beat them was by pass rush. That's true, but I didn't think they could do that. If they had to lose, I really do think this is better for the future. Okay, because if, say, this game played out like last year against San Francisco, we go to overtime, we lose. We have a heartbreaker. I think it's a lot harder to flip the page. It's a lot harder to say, well, we really need to change some things. Like, if you lose by a field goal, you could argue, oh, it was a play here, a play there. Well, no, in this case, you got your ass kicked. You weren't close. And I just think it kind of forces them to make some changes they maybe otherwise wouldn't have, to really reflect on, okay, we're 20 points behind this year. What do we got to do? We'll see. They're going to have a great off season. A lot of people are going to say, I think, that it's the year for somebody else to win the division. It might be, but they're going to have a hell of an off season just to stay in this position, I think. And they got a shot. They do have a shot, but it's just going to be hard. Obviously, picking from where they are and not having the most money.
Well, I think if you could, I mean, getting that offensive line right and spending the money there,
Mm.
I think that's all it's going to take. Giving Mahomes that extra luxurious time, as smart as he is reading defenses, as great of an arm as he has, throwing from whatever angle, running whichever way, giving him a line, I think that's going to be the key to winning the division. If you have a defense that gives up 30 points a game, who gives a fuck? You get Patrick Mahomes time to sit back there. If you got 30 seconds to a minute on the clock, you're going to get some points. He's just a generational talented quarterback in that aspect. If you decide that you're going to put the whole game on his shoulders and he's going to have to run around the whole time and scramble and not have any time, he's going to throw interceptions and you're going to lose football games. Sometimes, 80% of the time, he's going to win you the games. But the other 20%, the big stages,
Mm-hmm.
You're not always going to win them. And this is one that they did.
Yeah, and let's be real, the only difference between Sunday and the Bills game is the Bills, for whatever reason, they didn't get pressure. I don't know why it is that they never seem to be able to do that when they have to, but they haven't. Eagles did. And I hope our GM, Veach, Andy, I hope they think like you, Bass, because like I've already seen it floated out there. What if Kansas City gets, they're tired of these kind of mid-off offensive years. What if they go out and spend on T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, and create like a super receiver room? And yeah, that's fun on paper, but that is not. I don't think that gives them the best chance to win. I don't. So you just don't need all that. You don't need to go that crazy with it. The hard part is, how do you get a good left tackle when everybody knows you need it? They don't grow on trees. Hell, there's probably 12 to 15 decent left tackles in the league. And so, but then on the flip side, I say, well, did they really even need a good or great one? Orlando Brown was, in my opinion, average. Eric Fisher was about average, maybe a little above, and it wasn't a problem. So it's kind of like, can we just get to a point where Mahomes isn't thinking about it? Because you could tell Sunday night he'd get that ball drop back, and until the fourth quarter when he just kind of said fuck it, you could just tell every time, as we did many times this year, he's thinking about it. Like, he's got happy feet, he's dropping his eyes, he's missing guys wide open because he's worried about running around. And he spoke about that after the game. He said he's got to reflect and figure out how these defenses are attacking him. They're making him kind of go directions that in reality he shouldn't go, but for whatever reason it's working. So it's a big off season, and if nothing else, I do want to see them get back to being more of an offensive team, not just because it's funner to watch, but also I think it just gives them the best chance to win. What they did last year, being a great defense and kind of game control and offense, credit to them for doing that, but that's not, you can't do that year after year. You can't have a top defense every single year. Nobody does. So what do? You've got to build it around the quarterback if you have the quarterback. So without going on and on and on, I think they have a shot with a good off season. Doesn't have to be perfect. A good aggressive off season. Left tackle. They need more speed on offense because besides Worthy and Brown, everybody else was slow. It wasn't that they were slow. Juju slow. DeAndre Hunt. These guys can't make plays with the ball in their hands for the most part. And so, anyway, a great off season. I think they can get back. Easier said than done. And we'll see how it goes. The AFC is obviously competitive as hell. So, as you know.
Right, yeah, and the people out there saying, that they would like Godwin or the T. Higgins, like you said, it looks great on paper, but look at New England when they went out and got Moss. They put on a show, but that just goes to show you the best receiver he ever had never won a championship with him.
It's true.
I just think, you got such a great quarterback with Reed and I would even trade future early draft picks if there was a chance to get a solid left tackle that isn't super injury prone. If you know you got your future set with your quarterback and your head coach and say an interior guy that you have like Jones, you can afford to go ahead and give away next year's first round if you can partner it. You know what I mean, to
Mm-hmm.
get somebody now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think receivers, or if you need to go after a tackle in free agency, it's going to be tough to get one. If you need one, obviously being the Chiefs, but there's somebody in the NFC that would probably be able to deal one. But I was going to ask something else. What do you think about the tush push?
Well, man, the game was so bad that I feel like we didn't even have to deal with it a whole lot. I think they ran it 2 or 3 times maybe, and the first time they did for that touchdown, it did seem to mess with Jones' neck or something like that. I've said since the year they started doing it, I kind of hate it just from like it's boring and it's not really football to me, but at the same time, I don't see it going anywhere because they're the only team who's just dominating at it every single week. It's a huge advantage. It's one more reason to buy stock in Philly and think that maybe they could make another run at this thing. But I don't like the play. That doesn't have anything to do with this game. That's not why obviously we lost. I just I just think it's a kind of a lame way to play our sport.
I think I would be fine with them keeping it a play, but at the same time, I would want the defense to be allowed to stack up in the middle and push as well. Um, and that's sports shit. I mean, they're pretty much just allowing them to. You can't stop it.
You can't.
The success rate's 99%, and if you're not allowed to get an initial push in the middle on defense, you can't stop it. So I don't understand how. I don't understand how it's really allowed.
It's really the best thing about Hurts. Well, that's being disrespectful. I don't want to take away from Jalen Hurts too much. He's in an elite club now as a Super Bowl winner, but that's one of the best things about his skill set because we saw when Pickett went in, he failed that at once, I think. And so you realize, okay, the quarterback who can squat 600 pounds or whatever, he's part of he's part of it. He's a big reason for why it's so indefensible. So now that being said, there is one thing before I forget I want to talk about because on a lot of the shows, because it draws views, reactions, the conversation has been, how this game impacts Mahomes or Andy's legacy. To be expected, right? If they would have won, these same shows would have gone on there and said, oh, they're the greatest ever, even though that would have probably been even a little premature, even in my opinion. But now that it's over, I just think it's ridiculous that a guy has the greatest 7 year start to a career we've ever seen. And because it's been so great, now, after this game, people are trying to almost say he's a failure because he didn't do something that no one's ever done. It's like he can never be this or never be that because he didn't three-peat, even though nobody ever has done that. And I don't know. That's the fan in me, obviously, who feels that way, but it rubs you the wrong way how you got teams like Buffalo, Cincinnati with these great quarterbacks, Baltimore, who would kill just to get into that game, who would kill to win that game once. And because Mahomes loses his attempt to win a fourth, now it just feels like everybody's doing victory laps and trying to say that it's over and he'll net. I don't know. I don't know how if you've seen that going on, but I know I have, and maybe I'm looking in the wrong place.
Is it 5 Super Bowl appearances in his first 7 years as a starter?
Yeah, that's right. Five and lost the two AFC title games in overtime that he didn't.
Well, it don't matter. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so you're in the league first 7 years, 7 AFC championships. You go to 4 Super Bowls. Yeah, only 4 Super Bowls.
Well, five even.
Uh,
Yeah,
or sorry, yeah, you only make it to 5 Super Bowls. And then unfortunately, you're only able to win 3 out of the 5. How many Super Bowl MVPs?
three. Yeah,
3. Okay, yeah, only 3 Super Bowl MVPs.
yeah.
So I keep seeing comments like, oh yeah, after that game right there, it's a done deal. Brady's will go down as the greatest of all time, and I'm like, how? What if Mahomes? What if in the next 7 years he goes to another 5 Super Bowls and wins all of those? I mean, you just never know. How are they already?
Hmm.
Does losing this game make Patrick Mahomes take a step back
Hmm.
in chasing Brady? maybe a half a step because he's still obviously so young. You put Brady and Mahomes' first 7 seasons side by side. You do that shit and decide then if it's too early to go ahead and crown Brady or not.
And that's just it. And I think that's all anybody, from my point of view, would ask for is let's just be honest about it. The truth is, Brady is still by far in that top spot, by far. I would have still said that even if Mahomes had won, but I would have said it's very close at that point. Maybe it just takes one more. But to say it's over, there's no, that's just crazy. I mean, it's he could have another, really should have about 10 years left. We'll see. And do I think they're going to make it as many times as they have? Odds are no. If he plays 10 more years, we'll be very lucky if he makes 5 more like he has so far. But you don't know until you know. The only thing that should be definitive is today, as we sit here, 2025, he's not there yet. He's not the greatest. That's Dom. But I also think it's pretty definitive that even despite the loss, he's had the best first half of a career, let's say it. And the other thing is too, man, they were trying to three-peat, they fell on their face. But the Patriots tried to go undefeated and did the same thing. And I know it wasn't a blowout, but they were favored by 14 points against that Giants team. The Chiefs were favored by 1.5. So when you think of it that way, favored by 2 touchdowns and you lose, I think they got a lot in common. They maybe both teams kind of heard that too much and it got in their head, and it became almost an annoyance or too much pressure they were putting on themselves. That would be kind of my thought. If we're just going in the time machine instead of trying to compare a 23-year career to a 7-year career. But at the end of the day, it's all kind of nonsense. It's a conversation we can have and probably shouldn't really have until they're both all the way done. In the meantime, just enjoy the guys that are playing, because it's a heck of an era. The quarterback play is unbelievable right now, especially in the AFC.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think that I think I'd be lying if I said that I didn't believe that some of the outside noise and distractions played a part in the outcome of the game, um, whether it be on the scoreboard or on the field. Uh, Obviously, some of the questions that they were asking Mahomes and Kelsey in those interviews, they can blow it off all they want, and they're professionals, yeah, but they're still people. That shit still gets in their head. What, don't matter how professional they are. And it's not just that one guy asking questions. Social media, obviously, the biggest platform ever. People shouting slurs on the sidelines. You know how many Philly fans are there and how rough they are?
Hmm.
There ain't no telling the kinds of shit that was getting yelled on the sidelines. And it's been just a really rough, probably month for the Chiefs, just in terms of all the shit going around, the refs rigging. They obviously hear this
Mm-hmm.
in the game, like I was saying earlier. Uh, Taylor Swift getting booed
Mm-hmm.
by the thousands of fans there, and some of Kelsey's efforts on the plays where Mahomes is scrambling and about to get his shit rocked, and Kelsey's just standing there like this in the middle of the field, not trying to. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't seem like they were 100% ready, 100% there. I seen a report this morning that I fucking laughed at. It was like, it wasn't legitimate. I think it was just like a fan, like, yeah, I think Andy Reid's time is up here in Kansas City. I think it's time for him. It's like, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, five championship appearances in 7 years. Yeah, sending to fucking Pittsburgh, please.
please.
Trying to win a wild card game over here.
Oh, bro. Yeah, that stuff's just crazy. Every year he was dreadful Sunday, but every year that we get Andy from here on is a good year, I would say,
Oh yeah.
and so we'll see how it goes. It doesn't get any easier, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't have a ton else to say. I was gonna, obviously, congrats again to Phillies players and their coaches. I don't have a lot to say about the fans. I don't know
I
what they
think
deserve.
that no, fuck the fans. I think that really quick about Travis Kelsey.
Yeah.
I think by March 13 or 14 is what I seen that they're wanting an answer. If I don't know how his relationship is with Taylor. I haven't talked to her in a couple weeks. But what I'm saying is, if they're really in love, if he's in love with her, I think he tells the Kansas City Chiefs that he's going to retire
Yeah.
because the whole nation booing her at that stage, I can't see him wanting to come back and try to put her through more. You know how embarrassing that shit would be? So that's my thought. If he's going to end up staying with her and making shit work, if she wouldn't have got booed, I think he comes back because of how bad the fashion in which they lost him,
Hmm.
and it would fuel him enough to do that. But I think all of the distractions, if he's wanting to make the relationship work, he's probably gonna have to step back unless he wants the relationship to end up, unless she wants Taylor to start fucking the whatever the what was that, the karate guy that that
Oh,
gazelle was simple.
Giselle.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's. I want to believe that the booing, that's just the Philadelphia people coming out. It wouldn't happen maybe as long as they don't play the Eagles again next year, which I'm worried that they might if they did, or fortunate enough to
yeah.
get back. Um, but we'll see, man. I'd say the Chiefs. I think my prediction, they're going to talk to him. They're going to say, "Hey, buddy, we know it's been a lot. You are not what you were. You don't want to have that role anymore. Good news, we do at least have some guys who can take the load off as long as they don't get hurt, which is unfortunately always a risk. But um, we'll see. It'll be tough if he does retire. That'll be a show in itself. Um, just kind of sudden, You always know it could happen, but until it does, it doesn't feel real. So
Uh-uh. But if he does retire, he retires as arguably, statistically, maybe the greatest tight end of all time.
yeah,
I think he's right there with Gronk. Yeah, I think Kelsey's just a little bit higher,
well, and then you throw in a
but
guy. I'm not saying I would argue for him, but Tony's got the longevity stats because he played
yep,
for so long, and so those are the types of discussions when a guy's played his whole career. Going back to what we were just talking about with Mahomes, like once a whole career is pretty much done, you can really start to have that talk in a way that's legitimate and meaningful. Um, so yeah, it will be a fun back and forth and a challenge for Kansas City if they have to replace him or not replace him, but you know what I mean, go on without him.
yeah,
No doubt about it. All right, man. Well, I think that'll do it. I can't hardly stand to talk about that shit show anymore. No, it's good. We're far enough removed that it's 2025 at this point. Free agency's coming, the combine, the draft, the whole nine, and
preseason's a couple months away.
preseason's a good 6 months away. It'll fly by. It'll fly by, and before you know it, we're teeing it up, and those godforsaken Philly fans are going to host the first game of the year. And whoever draws that, I'm sorry, because nobody deserves to have to do that as a road team. But yeah, better check. Make sure the Steelers aren't going to Philly this year. I don't think they could be, right? They just did that. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Uh, we just had him actually in
In
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Okay. Well,
Yeah, so.
I know Kansas City
We
has Philly at home next year, so it won't be us at least. But
know Price will be rebuilding the city by week 1 next year.
it's like a natural disaster came through. They won the Super Bowl, tore the city apart. Oh. All right,
Damn.
you two effers, good chat. We'll see you next time.
So yeah.